This is our first example. We're going to be graphing cosecant with transformations. So the first thing we're going to do is graph the reciprocal function that has the same a, b, h, and k values. So the first thing I'm going to do then is graph y equals to sine of 1/2 x plus 3, because sine is the reciprocal of cosecant. When we're graphing sine, we know the first thing that we have to do is graph it with a and b impacting the graph. A gives us the amplitude and b helps us find the period, which is 2 pi over b. Whenever we divide by a fraction, you should know to keep, change, flip. So that gives me a period of 4 pi. Taking a look at the scale of the x-axis, we're going to do 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and full of the period length, which is pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi. I'm also going to put tally marks on the left-hand side because it says in the directions I'm going to do 2 cycles. The a value is 2, and I see I'm going to be moving it up 3, so I'm going to use a scale of 1. Instead of the 1/2 that I normally like to use. So now I'm going to go ahead and graph it with a and b, and then I'll take a look at the transformation. Because it's sine, I know the pattern should be origin, max, x-intercept, min, x-intercept. On the left-hand side, I just had a max, so it needs to go min, x-intercept, max, x-intercept. Making our 2 full cycles look like this. Now there is a k value, which means I need to move the whole graph up 3 units. So go ahead and do that. I will do the same. Okay, here's my graph after it's been shifted up 3 units. Now, I was talking about this in the previous video. Once you've moved it up or down because of a k value, your center line, that's the line that cuts your graph in half. It's also called the line of symmetry. That has been moved. Okay, so now I no longer have a center line on the x-axis. It is now at y equals the k value, so y equals 3, which is right here. You don't have to draw this on your sheet, but it could be a good idea to make a note that the center line is at y equals 3 right now, because when we do part 2, where the vertical asymptotes become or appear where the function, in this case sine, is equal to 0, well, sine is 0 along the center line. Here's my x-intercepts at 4 pi, 2 pi, 0, negative 2 pi, negative 4 pi. So in this example, it just so happens that the x-intercepts are at the same location as the intercepts on the center line. However, if we would have had a horizontal transformation as well, you would have seen a clear difference. Now, that's not the only thing we have to do. Once we have the asymptotes, we need to turn the maxes into mins and the mins into maxes. This creates parabolas approaching the asymptotes we've just created. So right here, looking at my red translated graph, this max will become a min. This min will become a max. This max will become a min, and this min will become a max. What I have in green would be the final function. Let's try another one. Example 2, the first thing I have to do is graph y equals -3 of the reciprocal of secant. That would be cosine. And when we're graphing cosine, just like how when we're graphing sine, the first thing you should do is graph it without the transformation. So I'm saving the reflection and the h value for later. Remember, the b value helps us get the period, which is 2 pi over the absolute value of, in this case, 1. So the period's going to be 2 pi. That's going to help us label our scale. 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and full. I'm also going to put tally marks on the left-hand side because remember we need 2 cycles. And because the amplitude is 3, I'm just going to use a scale of 1. That way everything fits on the graph. Because it's cosine, we know the pattern is max, x-intercept, min, x-intercept, max. On the left-hand side, we just ended at a max, so it's x-intercept, min, x-intercept, max. Okay, so here it is. That's our cosine without the transformation. Now we need to go ahead and do a reflection as well as apply the h value. I would do the reflection first, which is what I am doing now. And once you've done the reflection, you are then able to apply the h value. Now the h value is in the form x minus h. So I'm subtracting a positive pi over 2, meaning I need to move right pi over 2. Make sure you're looking at your your reflected graph. So moving my reflected graph right 1 tally mark, because 1 tally mark is pi over 2. That would make my graph look something like this. So my purple graph is cosine with the transformations. So that's the final cosine graph. But we're not done yet because now we're going to have to create vertical asymptotes wherever cosine is 0. So we need to look at the purple graph, and you can see that we have x-intercepts at 2 pi, pi, 0, and negative pi. Now we need to have our maxes become mins and our mins become maxes. So thus creating our parabolas would look something like this.